Welcome to this week's Hymn of the Week. This week we have Glory to God 250, Hymn of Promise, a hymn that was composed, text and music by Natalie Sleeth, one of the great composers of church music, particularly children's music, right? And I will say that this hymn was originally a choral anthem, and in 1985 it was performed at the Pasadena Community Church in St. Petersburg, Florida. And it was, of course, a concert, a festival concert of Natalie Sleeth's music, so very appropriate there. And the composer, as she was from Evanston, Illinois, she lived from 1930 to 1992. And here's what she says or said about this hymn. It was written during a time where she's basically saying, I was pondering the ideas of life, death, spring and winter, Good Friday and Easter, and the whole reawakening of the world that happens every spring. She was inspired by this line from T.S. Eliot, which we see in verse 3, in our end is our beginning, right? And so this hymn is about the promise of spring and the hope of Easter. And it was also had an impact after it was composed for her husband. And her husband was diagnosed with, I believe, terminal cancer or terminal malignancy, we'll call it that, as it says here in the hymnal. And then this piece became something very unique and life-giving to Natalie's husband all the way to his death, and it was also sung at his funeral. So for us today as singers, organists, Christians, I would say it reminds me of the seasons and how God has a season for everything. And the seasons that we have in the year, summer, winter, fall, spring, that was a way to put them way out of order. But either way, there's a purpose and reason, I think, that God gave us those seasons. And so this hymn reminds us of that. And this spring season is about reawakening. What needs to be reawakened inside of you or maybe inside of me? What needs to blossom and bloom maybe for Christ that may not have been before spring, right? So I'm going to do a couple things in the music to bring this hope and this joy and that promise of spring to life. So the first thing is using just a clarinet on the choir, just having that kind of blossoming moment, just a really nice beginning, right? The other thing I like to do is lean on one of the words. And this word, unrevealed, to me really means something. Unrevealed until it's season. We don't know what God's doing, but we know that there's a good ending for those that have a relationship with Jesus Christ and believe in Him. So unrevealed until it's season, what I'm going to do there is take the very clear sound of the 4-foot principle to remind us of that hope. And in a very much kind of my way of playing hymns, I will improvise in between. And the reason a lot of times when I improvise is sometimes I hear it in my mind, but also it gives me a chance to worship in the moment through my playing and reflect at the same time. So this is a moment of worship to thinking about unrevealed until it's season, something God alone can see. Putting my faith in God that there's going to be things unrevealed, but God has it under control. And some of those things are going to be joyful, and some of those things may be things that we don't really know too much about. But I feel it needs reflection. And so I'll be playing some interludes in between as well. So here is Hymn of Promise. a flower in the seed and apple tree. In cocoons a hidden promise, butterflies will soon be free. In the cold and snow of winter, there's a spring that waits to be unrevealed until its season, something God alone can see. There's a song in every silence, seeking word and melody. There's a dawn in every darkness, bringing hope to you and me. From the past will come the future, what it holds a mystery, unrevealed until its season, something God alone can see. In our end is our beginning, in our time infinity. In our doubt there is believing, in our life eternity. In our death a resurrection, at the last a victory. Unrevealed until its season, something God alone can Thank you very much for listening to Hymn of the Week.